Good timing. Welcome to the show.
How about that? Another Monday and off we go. It is hashtag Real Race Talk, the Revved Up Sports Show. You guys, welcome in. We've got another great program lined up for you guys after the star-studded weekend, man. I think we're definitely into the real deal right now because there's lots of racing going on all around the country. Lots of stuff here in Texas. We've got Ryan Doyon coming up here probably in about 15 minutes or so. Obviously, we really want to give a lot of push to the STEM series. We think that's a really big deal, so we'll get him on here. Brandon Guerin's coming up. We'll talk some sport mods, and then Rodney White scheduled to join us around 7:30, the bottom of the hour. They're in the 7 o'clock hour. So, like we said, man, lots going on, and the heat is back, and we felt it in Houston. It was hot as shit out there, dude.
Well, I don't know. I was stuck in the media center all night, so I had a lot of AC. So I mean, y'all were sweating. I was doing pretty good.
Oh, that wasn't even working right. I was told.
Not really. It could have been a little. It could have been a little cooler in there. But it definitely was better than being outside the whole night.
Yeah. I did a pre-race show in there on the HMP deal, and it was hot. It was still hot at that time of the day. So something was going on with the old window unit there, so not working. But that's all right, man. I think that it's one of these things that. And lots of things to talk about tonight. But one of the things is heat when it comes to this time of year. And I hear folks talking about, well, maybe we shouldn't race this time of year or whatever. But it's like, when else are you going to do it? I mean, you can't race into foot, or you shouldn't race into the regular part of football season. It's just not a good idea. I mean, I don't care where you are. This is Texas. Not a good idea to do it here. But it's the weird thing was Houston pushed everything back an hour due to heat, and normal gate time. Everybody was there. And
Yep.
that's where it's like, well, is it really worth even moving it? Because they're going to show up anyway.
I don't know. I'm like you. Come about 7 o'clock. That's when the whole world was sitting there, ready to go. And then they had to wait around for an hour. Luckily, they had the spectator races to keep them busy until approximately 8:45 or so.
Hmm.
And then we did the opening ceremonies at 9 o'clock. So to me, that seemed a little late. For me, I would have rather have, if we were going to go do the opening ceremonies at 8 and then just roll heat races, just continue to roll, have a little bit of an intermission there after the heat races or after the spectator races, and then just roll with it, right? But that's I mean, all in all, I mean, we still got out of there at a decent time for when we started.
Yeah,
We were done right at about 11 o'clock, maybe 10 till.
yeah. It was an earlier than 9 o'clock start. By the time everything was done, I think we fired off somewhere around 8:46 is when everything really got going. But but the whole thing is, I mean, in my opinion, and this is where we go back to, and here's going to be the other topic that we're going to talk about tonight, because we've seen it today. Starts, restarts, starting positions. Is it the driver? Is it the track? Is it all of this? And you guys, we can have a really candid discussion about this one tonight. And the whole thing is, the whole part about this is not track specific. I think you all know what track that I'm talking about that posted something today, but we're not here to bash any racetrack. I just want your opinions, guys, on with the starts and all of that. I mean, who controls that? I mean, a lot to the driver, but we'll get back in just a second. But when it comes to the situation like in Houston the other night, it's like, okay, I if we had Bobby, if we had 4 or 5 classes, great, start at 8:30, 9 o'clock, but we don't. That's not the way it works anymore. And when you have that many classes, I'm not going to say cars, when you have that many classes that you're trying to condense into something, it gets a little much. It gets a little much. And again, 11, like you said, 11:30, for those of us that have been doing this for thousands of years, it ain't that late. It's not really that late. But when it comes down to, the other night in Houston, I saw a couple of different folks that were maybe walking out at some point to where they didn't want to be there after 10 o'clock because they were accustomed to the 10:05, 10:10 finishes, and then you had lightning, and I think we were all purposely trying to not talk about that, and it was on me to not talk about it because I was watching, and it was beyond 8 miles. I do that whole high school thing to where is the lightning 8 miles within the thing, and I didn't talk about it, but it's a lot, man. It's a lot to do. It's a lot to do, and we talk about this every week on here, man.
It's like feeding a dog right in the middle of a show, right? It's a lot to do when you're trying to pay attention
I
to
was
the show.
stalling there for you. That yeah, I
Yeah,
was.
yeah. Rusty's decided to jump up on the desk again. Hopefully, he did better than he did last week because last week he fell when we were interviewing Chris Carroll. And so I'm trying to keep that from happening again this week, although it's not being very successful because he's still right back up at the top wanting some treats. And but yeah, yeah, welcome to the show, everybody. Yeah, he definitely it was what were we talking about?
Back to the whole thing about timing. And again, I was talking to Terry Barden after the race. And by the way, thank you, Terry Barden. Terry Barden, it's a funny story. But so Terry Barden, Boone Evans, and I are apparently the Natty Light guys. And Terry and Linda, when they were talking about how much beer they were going to bring to the track, Terry's like, "Well, Rodney's going to be there. We got to take a 30-pack." So thank you, Terry and Linda, for the cool, nice drinks there afterwards. But yeah, just about that, about start times, and do you move all that back? I mean, in my opinion, Bobby, the fans are either going to show up or they're not. You can publish a start time, but they're programmed a certain way. They're either going to come or they're not going to come. It's one of the two.
Your hardcore fans are going to come whether it's 10 degrees or 100 degrees, really. Basically is how that's going to work. So I mean, you could sit there and start at 8. If they're like you said, if they're programmed to come at 7, when the start time is, they're probably not going to pay attention to the actual schedule. They're going to pay attention to see who's on it, but not pay attention to the actual schedule itself. And like you said, there was a lot of people showing up at 7 wondering what was going on when the show was starting at 8 versus starting at 7.
Yeah.
So I think that it becomes a your seasoned fan, not necessarily your hardcore fan, but your seasoned fan that's used to coming out there and everything else. They're gonna come out there and they're gonna come out at their normal time because it's a normal routine for them, right?
Sure.
And they're like, well,
Sure.
let's hydrate because we're gonna sit out in the heat for a minute. That's why the shaded sections of HMP are the first ones to go. Because everybody likes to sit up there versus sitting in the aluminum stands in the direct heat. So, and that's just one example. I mean, there's all other tracks. I mean, you see it everywhere where whether it be Texana, Heart of Texas, Pensacola, all of that, your seasoned fans are the ones that are going to show up and sit there just as a normal time, just like they always do. So I think that's one way to look at it.
And the thing is, I can directly or will directly, and again, at Dirt, when you mention Heart of Texas right there, it's one of those things, and I know it's the same way at all the dirt tracks that I go to. I mean, even at the race ranch, I mean, we have the time that we're going to race or whatever the time is supposed to happen, and people show up early and they want to be there. But it's for the other folks, but that's where it gets really hard because if you're trying to the the thing about it the other night was I think what brought a lot of people in and will continue to bring people in is the added attraction, the spectator thing. That's a really big deal. I mean that thing has really caught a lot of flavor for people, and they want to come out and they bring people. But where it gets extremely tough is just the fact that, and this is on both surfaces, to where, and this is a long story short. Again, I'm making this a whole lot longer story than it should be. Terry and I were talking about to where it's so hard to do it now because it 4 classes versus 8, 9. And the whole thing is you can look at that to where maybe you have 8 classes and they only have, hypothetical, just throwing darts at the wall. Maybe they only have 9 classes apiece. But you know what? If 2 of them step on it, that just drags it all out. And people don't want to hang around for that. And the other part of that is, Bobby, I totally think that even on the stream, I mean, the streaming is super important. But if things really drag out and there's nothing happening on the stream, it's just a picture of the track. I'm going to turn that shit off. I'm going to watch something else. I don't just want to see the racetrack. I don't want to see a tow truck. I don't want to see commercials. I don't want to see anything else. I'm turning it off. Turning it
Yeah,
off.
that's why it pays to start on time. When the stream says it's going to start, that's why it needs to start on time. Sure, if you got some exceeding range services, put up a graphic, let somebody know what's going on. Hey, water truck broke, or hey, lightning delay, or weather delay, or something. Put something up on the TV graphic that says, exactly what's going on if you're not going to start on time. Hopefully you don't have to put up the sign that says technical difficulties at this time. That's not a good sign to put up. But definitely have an opportunity there to what's the word? Definitely have an opportunity there to the fans are not. The problem is the fans are not stupid. They know when it's boring, and they know when it's not. And it's hard for us to come in and make a boring ass race exciting. It's very hard. Any announcer will tell you that. You got to find the silver lining in every race. But the problem is, if it's two cars and they're half a track apart, they're not going to like that race. Now, I'm not saying every race needs to be a barn burner, because that's how you set the standard for racing, is when it's good versus great versus awesome. So, not every race can be a barn burner 3-wide finish to the finish line. But, you want to see competitive racing lap in and lap out, regardless of the surface, regardless of the type of track, regardless of the series. You want to see that competitiveness. And if you don't, most people consider that boring, and they're going to turn it off, or they're going to leave, or they're going to do something else, or they're not going to come back. So, that's the job of the racetrack. That's why it's so hard when you have 8 classes of 5 cars versus 4 classes of 8 cars, right? It's the same exact amount of cars, but you got to find a way to make it entertaining for the fans. That's why if you got 15 cars show up, that's somewhere, sometimes you'll see 3 heat races of 5 instead of 2 heat races of 8 and 7.
Yeah, and it does. It gets really tough on how to structure that. I mean, just timing everything. I mean, practice. How much practice is too much practice? How much practice is not enough practice? I mean, all of that comes up, and it's something that's going to go on and on and on, and it will continue to be. And again, guys, that topic down there, feel free to comment on that, and that's why we throw that up. I mean, we can see how many people you folks are checking in, depending on what platform you're on, and you may be able to see, but we see the total, because this show is on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This show is on 9 different platforms. So there are a lot of people that are checking in on this. And we've even got a text line that I'll pop up here in a little bit for folks that want to do that may not be able to do the YouTube and the Facebook and all that, because you people wanted to talk about this, and you haven't been shy to do it with this thing all day long. So let's break down how all that's supposed to happen. We'll have our thoughts as well. And Magic Mike, kind of back to the Houston thing. I mean, absolutely amazing legacy race. I mean, those 2 dudes in the heat race had a hell of a finish right there. And that's where you look at that class, and it has grown tremendously. And I mean, honestly, I mean, when you have a Houston race, that's one of your main events right there, is those legacy cars. I mean, because it's I mean, man, they put on a hell of a show, but they have bad nights too sometimes.
No, the couple of races ago, they had a real rough night with a lot of extracurricular beating and banging and crashing. But I mean, no class is immune to it, right? Every class has an issue every now and then. But I just think that you have to make the best of it, and they have reasons to. There's a reason why different classes are off on different times and all of that. Sometimes everybody needs a chance to rebuild and get their stuff back together and all of that. So it's I mean, it's a normal. I think that I know that schedules and series and classes are on schedules for a reason. But I think that when you have an in-tune promoter that pays attention to what classes need a break, because there's less and less cars popping up when there's some out there.
Yep.
That's, does the competitor in me think that sucks if I'm not trashed, if I'm not breaking stuff and I'm there and I want to race? Do I want to see my class off the schedule? No, hell no, I don't want to see my class off the schedule. But at the same time, do I want to be booked on the schedule for next season? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I would like to be booked on the next season. So I think you have to put that into consideration too, and sometimes make that as a thought in terms of some of the some of the way that the promoters pay attention to the schedules and the classes racing at the track and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, let's go diving in. We got a full docket to talk about tonight. It was a big night at I-37 Speedway. You had the STEM series back out again, and again, I mean, we got to congratulate those folks on just everything that they have done this year. I mean, like we talk about, it's like the modifieds has kind of fallen away in South Texas, but man, they have come to life, and with the lots of races that are on that schedule. I mean, you have folks showing up, and it's full car counts, and it's just tremendous racing, and they were there at 37 this past weekend, and at the top of the heap once again. Man knows his way to victory lane. It doesn't matter the racetrack. It is our brother, Mr. Ryan Doyon. How we doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Hey, man, thank you so much for taking the time to dive in today. So, kind of talk about the race on Saturday. It was one of those where it started out a little rough, but kind of walk us through the whole day there for you.
Yeah, like you said, it started a little rough. It was pretty eventful that first turn. Yeah, I knew going into the race, I just kind of had to survive the first couple laps and go from there, honestly.
Absolutely.
So Ryan, before we get into the whole STEM stuff, let's talk about your background a little bit, because you've raced a little bit of everything. So talk about how you got to where you are now. What kind of classes did you run, and how'd you end up getting all the way up to the big mod?
Oh, well, I guess it started around when I was 5 years old. I started racing quarter midgets in the San Antonio area from, I don't know, about 5 to 8 years old. And then I think around 14, I got into my first pure stock out at I-37. And then I raced pure stocks for a couple of years and then jumped into limited mod around 16 or 17 years old. And then, yeah, I raced those for a couple of years and then got into a mod about 3 or 4 seasons ago.
Yeah. And Ryan, doesn't that seem to be, and I mean, I totally get it that sometimes folks have other resources and other ways to be able to do stuff, but for the progression part right there, where you dig your heels in, you learn one of those, I hate to say entry level because there really aren't any anymore, but you start out in one of those things and you progress. I mean, that ideally, that's kind of the way to do it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I guess everyone's different in their own way, but I feel like it's important to get those laps in those lower, not necessarily lower level classes, but cars that they're not quite as intense and you can't really change as much or get too ahead of yourself, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, I know a lot of promoters want us to use, instead of using the entry level, affordable classes instead of entry level. Although the mindset is the racers know the hierarchy, right? I think that's where it's weird. Your fans may not always understand the hierarchy of the different classes, but us racers do, right? That's why we sometimes call it an entry level class, because a pure stock is the one that you're supposed to go from the grandstands into the race car by running in the pure stock. You don't expect somebody to go from the grandstand to a late model or to a big mod, because chances are that's not going to work out all that great. If history has a tendency to repeat itself, sometimes that's not the best formula right there. So I think that to get back to the big point about the big mods, I think that the STEM series has turned out to be much more, I don't want to say successful, because that's not the right word. I think it's exceeded expectation all season long, because you've run all the races, you've been there. The car count's been pretty damn impressive for what it has been for some of these tracks. So talk about the experience. That seems like that series has grown without really spreading its wings just yet. I mean, we're just now roughly halfway through the inaugural season of the STEM. So talk about the series as a whole now for you.
Oh man, yeah, I'm really enjoying the STEM series. I think I like what you're saying. I feel like they're laying a good foundation for the future, and hopefully they can keep building off of it towards next season, seasons after that. I enjoy the competition level that STEMs has had so far this year. It's been a lot of fun racing with 16 to 20 cars every night instead of 7 or 8 like it was last year.
Yeah. Isn't that, I mean, we ask, all the guys and ladies that come on here that may be a part of the series, to where it's like that really was the odd thing, to where it was maybe, every week or 2-week thing for, you insert the track, and you just couldn't get them out. And it honestly, Ryan, when this schedule came out, I thought, man, that's a little aggressive in my opinion for that many dates with the travel and everything. But man, tight schedule, but these car counts are unbelievable right now.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with them. I'm really just glad and happy that Jacob Horch and his dad have put on the series. I don't know. I'm really enjoying racing with them. It's nice to see mod counts back up again a little bit at least.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So I mean, in terms of like the Stim series, like I think that it ends up being a good stuff. Jacob has been on the show a couple of times, and he's been more comfortable in that leadership role every time he kind of comes on, because we all know how hard it is. Racers are racers, right? I used to work with a guy that we used to run the limited modified series on asphalt. And the worst thing is you got to have some kind of contact point person, because the racer doesn't care who it is. They're going to get out of that car hot-headed, and they're going to find somebody to bitch at. And unfortunately, Jacob's usually the one before he even gets his helmet off. He's the one that's getting bitched at. So I think that, and you come from a racing family, so you know kind of how especially when people go after their promoters and stuff like that, the instantaneous their races are over. So I think that Jacob's done a really good job with that balancing act. And I think that the racers have, to a certain extent, they let him at least try to take his helmet off before they jump in the window and start yelling at him about the stuff. I think his dad takes a little bit of the heat too, but I think the overall success of the Stim series has been good, but there have been a few speed bumps in the road, which you're going to have in racing, not just necessarily the series. But in terms of the growth of the series, is would you like to see it expand even more to maybe have 1 or 2 races in Waco, or maybe try to go to 105? Or is now that Texana is not necessarily running the full rest of the season, is 3 or 4 enough? Or do you think, as a competitor, would you be willing to run 4 or 5 more tracks?
Personally, I will just show up wherever they put on the schedule. Honestly, I feel like maybe if next year they just tried to stick to 1 or 2 races a month instead of having months with 3 of them, and then we probably could travel a little further than we are now and hit a couple new tracks.
Yeah, I think if that were the case, because I've had kind of some discussions also, and I think that's when the B mains and all them start factoring in, because you're going to have that really, really high car count. So the season for you, I mean, it's been one of those to where, I mean, you start out, and then Chris Morris has a really good run right there with everything starting out. What you expect? I mean, it was tracks that kind of that favored not favored in the sense of driving ability and past success. But you've gone on a run right here, and it doesn't matter the racetrack. You guys have a really good program that you put together there with what you guys are doing in Stims.
That was part of my reasoning for wanting to run the full Stim schedules, is I wanted to improve at other tracks besides 37 and get more and more laps and just try to get more experience on other driving or having other driving styles on different tracks.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Ryan, I think one of your roughest races was down at Texana earlier in the season, when I think you had both 2 tires or 3 tires blow out on the trailer on the way down there. How do you jump over that, dude? Like, do you just try to get to the racetrack and put it behind you, or do you worry about that bad luck carrying over? Like, how do you adjust for something like that?
Yeah, it made for a really long day, I can tell you that. I was focused on just trying to get the car and the trailer there as safely as I can, and then focus on the racing from that and try to put it all behind me.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really hard to do when you have that many things. So I'd love your opinion on this. We talked about it when it happened. The incident there at Cotton Bowl with Cody and all of that. I think that was kind of a monumental time in the inaugural season of Stims, as just the way it was handled. I mean, I think that the series did a great job. Folks wanted to bash the track, and it's like, leave the track out of it. Track doesn't have anything to do with this. Your thoughts on that, man? I think Jacob and them did a hell of a job with that thing.
I agree, and I told Jacob that, I mean, no matter what choice they made, they really weren't going to make everyone happy, which is part of racing. And I just told him, as long as you make your decision and stand by it and just keep consistency, I don't feel like people can be mad at that.
That's right.
There's that word again, consistency. We hear that a lot from race car drivers, right? Like, if the call goes bad your way, right, you just wanted to make that same call every time, right? That's the best part about it. So, talk about your car, dude. We got a picture of it popping up on there. Talk about the car. Explain a IMCA modified to your new fan that may not be familiar with it? When they go to the racetrack, they see 3 or 4 classes with no front fenders. So describe an IMCA modified if you can.
Sure. It might look similar, I guess, to a limited mod or E mod or the other open wheel classes, but they're honestly a lot different, and there's so much more that you can change, and they drive so much different. As you can kind of see in the picture, they raise up on the bars, and they're more momentum cars. I feel like you have to keep them up on the bars and stay in the gas.
Yeah. So Ryan, for you, the balance of the year, I mean, because obviously you've got stems, you got toms, there's a lot. I mean, USMTS. I mean, there's a lot of different series. I know you're going to chase the stems here till the end. In between there, are there any other mod dates or series that you may be trying to jump into there, just as we kind of get to the 3/4 pole of the season?
Yeah, we're still thinking about going to the Mod Wars race at Waco. I'm entered in it, and so we'll see. Just as long as I can keep the car in one piece before that, I think we'll probably end up going. But yeah, other than that, I know I want to hit Oktoberfest at Cotton Bowl and DTK at I-37 and just try to see what happens from there.
Exactly.
Hey, Rodney, throw a picture of that car back up there. I was curious. I like number 5s, but I noticed something. Curiosity got the kitty cat fired up in me. Is that a Texas State Bobcat rated inside your number 5? Is that what that little kitty cat emblem is right there? Talk about how you decided on that.
Yes, sir. I went to university at Texas State. I went there for 4 years, and I really loved my time there and in San Marcos. And I don't know. I kind of chose the colors on my car partly because of the school and because no one else really has those colors. Mm-hmm. And it's something different. I feel like you don't really see a lot of people with designs in their numbers. So,
yeah.
I mean, I like it, but considering I'm a road runner, it's got me like, look at that kitty cat. That's all right. September 7th, man. That's the game of the year right there in San Marcos, UTSA and Texas State in San Marcos. So I will be at that game for sure. But yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
It's good to have but it's good to have that, right? Like you're in San Antonio, greater San Antonio area, and you've got the Bobcat on the car. Like I think that's great. Like I think it's great for the show and the rivalry, and it's great for showing the true aspect of it, right? Nothing wrong with enjoying the college days and reminiscing and all that. So I think I was giving you a little grief about it, but I like the way it's incorporated into the number 5. So
yeah, I'm just glad to see, the Texas State and UTSA rivalry taking off a little bit and gaining some traction and attention. And I don't know, I have a lot of pride in my school, I feel like, so always carry it with me.
They did drink. I was at the SMU stadium, and they did securely by halftime drink all the beer in the stadium completely out on both sides. So there was a lot of proud either Southwest Texas alums or Texas State alums that were happy that the beer was totally gone.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And that school is growing, and I've always said, for folks that if you can't find a good time in San Marcos, there's something wrong with you, because that's a really great town. I do want to ask you, Ryan. I mean, obviously the Doyon name right there. I do want to kind of ask you a 37 question. I love what's going to be happening, I guess, a week from Wednesday, the Wednesday night race. And again, I know that Ray does whatever you drive a car and do whatever, but man, I think that's a really ballsy move right there, man. And I'm a big fan of that. Try a Wednesday night race, man. I think that I can't believe that another track hasn't tried that yet. So innovators right there at 37.
Yeah. I think so. That's kind of always been his thing, is like, why not try it? Like, why you don't really know until you try something if it's going to work or not. And if it does work, then I guess you're kind of a trendsetter and go from there.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what are two things? Yeah. You're going to stub your toe, or it's going to be pretty damn successful. You're going to look like a genius or look like a fool. And those guys down at 37, they don't look like fools very often. They usually get their act together. And I'm like Rodney. I like that Wednesday night idea.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. And I feel like you can't be scared in promoting, almost like you just kind of have to take on the risk and see what happens. And if it turns out bad, it does. You kind of just have to live with it.
Yeah. Got to give it a shot and see what happens. So when is Stems? When's the next Stems race? I don't have that in front of me. You guys are still a good ways to go. Point race is pretty tight. Kind of thoughts moving forward on that series.
So I believe our next race is the 24th at Cotton Bowl.
Yes. That's on demand shirts night. Yep, that's right.
Yes.
That's right.
But yeah, it is a tight race, like you said. I'm looking forward to finishing out the season and hopefully having some good battles with Chris Morris like we did last weekend, and I don't know, Logan and everyone else that shows up every week.
That's a cool part, man. You've got a lot of good wheelmen. Congratulations on the win right there, surviving all of that, and just keep rolling, dude. And looking forward to seeing you at the next one, dude.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You got it, man. Take care.
You too.
You bet. There he goes, Ryan Doyon, and it really has been to where he went on some kind of roll right there to where it was. I mean, you had where Morris started out, and then there was a little bit of a dip right there that you talked about, Bobby. But man, he is he's been the man to beat. Been the man to beat right there.
Between him and Logan, they've done Dinsmore. They've notched it up a few rungs on that series. I mean, it's not that the racing was bad in the modifieds, but like the idea to put all the heavy hitters around South Texas in one series, it is a must-see show now. I mean, I think they have 20 cars at I-37 the other night on Saturday night. I mean, and generally they pull anywhere from 16 to 22 cars on a good night. Granted, the next race, luckily they've got a good few weeks between races now before they get to on-demand shirts night there at Cotton Bowl Speedway on the 24th, because they tore up a lot of stuff on Saturday night. There was some bent sheet metal and hurt feelings. So it is what it is. That's part of racing. But I mean, I guess that's I don't know. That's just part of racing. The series can't do anything about that. I mean, they could do stuff about rough driving, but not for that incident that happened on Saturday. I watched it live in the media center. Actually, Jared Moppin and I were watching it live in the media center when it happened. So, with our friends on Race On. So, I mean, it's just stuff like that's going to happen, man.
Yeah, that was one of those things. I went back and saw that, and it is. I mean, I don't care if it's dirt or pavement. I mean, when something happens like that, and you have trouble at the front of the field, I mean, it's impossible. It's impossible to avoid all that, and the bad part of. I mean, there's a lot of bad parts about that, but I just hopefully the guys that were you had guys that got dinged up, and that's always a not good thing when you get guys that walk away from those things, but physically they're not the best, and that's what you hate to see when that happens. And thank you all for checking in. And again, the topic is rolling there underneath us, but yeah, the 24th, that is on demand shirts night there at Cotton Bowl Speedway with the STEM series, and you know that's going to be a huge thing. And it was at Corpus where Dinsmore was on that roll, and it was actually Ryan that rolled in and broke that streak right there. So yeah, you got some good ones right there. Tim talking about point average. I'm not saying change it. The question is so that kind of takes the track out of it. It's one of those things to where, and I can specifically talk about when I started years ago. I mean, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and I would be on the pole a lot, my first year, because the point average was horrible because I finished bad. And there were times where it was like, you know what, I think we need to, after deep discussions with Dad, I think you need to go to the back. And I go to the back and try to pass people. And I really like what the Dwarf Car Racing Series of Texas did when I was a part of that. I don't know if they still do it. I'm sure they probably do, to where it's like you went into that series. And even me, when I went in as a rookie, I had to start in the back, heat race, feature race. I had to start in the back for 3 races just to figure out what you're doing. And I think that that's a really good concept to use. And I think that should move forward in other divisions, especially now, because there's so many cars. The competition is so. But this does go back to the driver, because it's one thing to make a mistake, but it's another thing to blatantly fuck up. And I think that's why the question comes up, because that's what we seem to see in a lot of different places. Happens on pavement a lot. I'm not picking on dirt. It happens on pavement a lot.
And a lot of times you see it happening to the same individual.
That's the
That's
thing.
the other problem too. Like you said, it's one thing if you step on it, right? That happens. Every racer's done it. We all wish we didn't because it hurts, right? The problem is that if the same guy continues to step on it, either he's got 2 left feet or he's gifted in other areas besides racing a race car. So I just think that it becomes an issue if it's the same guy that keeps doing or lady or whatever. That's when they got to get pulled to the side by your competitors, not to beat them up, but just say, you've been there, right? When the old veteran comes up, taps you on the shoulder and say, hey, we need to talk. This is what you need to do. This is kind of what you're doing wrong. That's when the community has to get involved. And instead of complaining about why they're missing the shift or they're spinning the tires or whatever the case may be, find out if they need the right setup. Find, hey, look, this is what's happened. This is why you're always spinning out. This is why you're spinning the tires. This is what's happening. You need to change this. Work together as a community to try to fix it versus always letting one guy kind of ruin the show.
Yeah. And then that's where it goes back to let the track make the call. The track does not know the track knows the tendencies of the driver. But I mean, you can't. I mean, I would just say it's not good business to walk up and say, "You pretty much suck on starts. You need to go to the back, or you need to start in the back." And that's where the other part of that is to let the track make that rule, like the Dwarf Car Racing Series of Texas did, or whoever else does. I mean, to put that on them. But the only part about that is, that if the racetrack makes that rule and they put it in their rules that this is what we're going to do with a new driver, that somebody's going to be pissed. And that's where we get to like what we had today, to where it's like more on the track. And that would be on the track because the track made that decision. But I think that's where we all need to be. We need to know our abilities. And I think that's the biggest problem that we have. And I mean, look the other night, Bobby, you and I, after we got done and we set up our CPAP machines, we went back to the Holiday Inn and we were looking at this right here. I mean, look, that was the finish of the ARCA race. Those guys, I mean, and again, this is a finish, but these guys found a way to race that thing out. That is the finish of a freaking race right there. A lot of respect right there, depending who you ask. But it's a really tough call on who should do that. I put it more on the driver. And the team.
Well, for the start of the finish, I think is one thing, right? That was a hell of a finish. And those guys did make extra contact there towards the end. Just like they did a couple of races ago when we were watching the Cars Tour race. Mm-hmm. So I think that it becomes an issue where, it's all about racing is a contact sport, but a lot of time it's the context at which there is contact. So if you're sitting on the start, right, and you spin the tires or you get the gas and you hit it and, all hell breaks loose, that's one thing. When you're coming to the checkers and you're just kind of not really slamming each other on the slide, but kind of getting up into each other and a little root and a little gouging. What did old Harry Hogg say in Days of Thunder? That's rubbing, and rubbing's racing, son. I think that's one of the quotes that changed racing as we know it. When he said rubbing is racing. That's the way we race now. That's not the way we raced back then before Days of Thunder came out. But now you come to expect it.
Yeah.
If you're running first and the guy in second has a chance to get to the lead by punting your ass, he's going to punt your ass when you get to him. It's that simple. That's the way we race now, and it's different than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago.
It totally is. And that's the whole thing. I mean, that's the whole mindset about it. And when it comes down to, because there are situations to where maybe sometimes the car doesn't go, and talking about restarts go. I saw I think Tim mentioned there again about going back to the last completed lap. As far as I knew, that was always a rule. If you're not doing that, I mean, you're kind of screwing the pooch if you're not going back to the last completed lap. I mean, that's kind of one of those things. And the other part of it that I've seen coming out, to your point, Bobby, is, and Brandon Guerin's coming up here in just a minute. He's in the waiting room, so BG12 will get you on here in just a second. But the other part that I see is, like, now folks will actually put up I mean, it's one of those things to where the unwritten rules about racing and so forth that we talk about as more as of older racers as to whatever those may be. And I've seen now that there's actually graphics that folks will post on social media to where it's like, okay, this is where it's the inside cars lane. This is where it's the outside cars lane. This is whatever. To your point, none of that shit matters, man. You can draw that thing out. You can make the coolest graphics all you want. This whole door thing at the numbers, whatever. And it's the one that I always, every time I see that graphic, I put the because it's like 3 different spots area of the race car. It's like, okay, it's this guy's line, it's this guy's line, it's this guy's line. I always put in number 4, the bumper. It's the guy behind you. It's his lane. And you know what's coming. You might as well put your ass in that seat because you're about to get pushed or bumped.
Yeah, you're about to get knocked out of the way. I mean, it's that simple. That's the way we race now. That's I don't know if that's the Bowman Gray effect, if you could call it that, but that's just the way that, I mean, I think it's part of it is this next generation of kids. That's why we're on bump stop on late models because they're used to racing go-karts. You can't really beat and bang in a go-kart, but that's kind of how you had to get around, some of the guys. It was momentum based, so you just went for it. You don't see the some of the old school guys just going for it anymore. They know what the hell they're doing. It's some of these younger guys that are just on the scene, and all they know 2 speeds: stop and wide ass open, and that causes a lot of problems.
Yeah, you had to learn how to drive, and when you mess one up, you had to work on it. And I think that's maybe where things are different. But here's a guy that works on his. He does a lot of work on his. It's one of those. It's a family core team. They've got folks that help them out. And I'll tell you, the other way to avoid some of that stuff is just be so damn fast. Like I said in the message I sent him, we're going to talk about how damn good you've been this year. It is our man Brandon Guerin checking in. Brandon, how we doing, brother?
All doing good, guys. How y'all doing?
Oh man, not too bad. We're just sitting over here pissing and moaning about the state of racing. Same old Monday night stuff we always do. But
I hear you, man.
Always like to lead with the weekend, my man. Let's talk about Friday night and then Saturday. You go on down the road to KRP and cash that one in, man. Break it all down for us.
Yeah, we had a good car Friday night as well, and ended up getting into a little incident there early. We just had a bad night of racing for the whole sport mod class. We were out there for about 40 minutes, it seemed like. Ooh. And yeah, they ended up cutting our race short and couldn't make a lap to save our lives. Everybody kept spinning out and wrecking, and we started in 4th row, I think, worked our way up to 2nd place, and I thought we had a good shot to win the deal, and ended up getting into an incident and got the right rear axle bent pretty bad, and I was actually lucky to even finish, but ended up ran 2nd for a while, but we ended up maintaining a 3rd. So after looking at the car Saturday morning, we were just lucky to finish that one because it was really bad, and got the wheel, tire, brake bracket, axle, everything. So just thankful we were able to hold on to even a top 4 out of that deal. So after fixing the car, we decided to go to Kennedale and try that out, and I think we ended up getting like 5th in the heat race and had a good run in the feature, worked our way up and walked away with the win on that one, and didn't have any damage there. So makes for a good easy maintenance week where you don't have to just kill yourself like we have been here off and on, and just do your regular maintenance and kind of get ready for Friday night.
There you go.
There's all those special parts you put in that axle. That's what made it run good at Kennedale, right? You got a chance to be like, maybe try this and try that and make this thing a hot rod again.
Well, I actually didn't have another new axle. The guy I get the parts from didn't have one in stock, so I actually robbed one out of the rear end. I run at Cotton Bowl, so luckily I have Tim Clonch builds our rear ends, and I have a couple spares, so I just borrowed one out of my Cotton Bowl rear end, put it in there for Kennedale, and it all worked out, man.
There you go. There you go. Makes it nice.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So the season for you, Brandon, it's been. You've constantly been. One of the best sport mod, limited modifier, IMCA Southern Sport, whatever you want to call it. You know what they are. We all know what they are. Let's kind of talk about the season for you, man, because it's been a really damn good one. I mean, and you've had good
Yeah.
seasons, but it's like every time I
Yeah,
look
I
up,
mean,
there you are.
yeah, we've had a good season. Last year was a little bit more consistent. I think we ran a total of 28 races last year, and I've never really been a national points chaser. Normally, you just run Waco. It's just easier for the family to do it, and we have sponsors and stuff that come on Friday nights to watch us. So it's just easier for us to run on Friday nights. And having 2 kids and stuff, it's tough to run 2 nights a week. So really, we just kind of maintain that Friday night deal, and we get a wild hair every now and then and go somewhere on Saturdays. But basically, last year we ran a lot more races, it seemed like, and had a lot better finishes. We didn't have hardly any DNFs. I think we had 1 the whole season. So this year we've had some tough breaks. We've had some flats and some wrecks where we tore up a whole rear end, bent the whole housing on the All-Star Shootout Tour. Just had some kind of up and down runs. Last year I think we had 9 wins. This year we're at 8, so we're not too far out. I think we're at 22 races right now. So we still have a little bit left. I think we have 4 more races at Heart of Texas, and then we'll get ready for Sport by Nationals after that, and then all our big races to come after that one.
Yes, sir.
So, Brandon, I've always wondered the racing on Friday night stuff versus the racing on Saturday. It seems like the guys and gals that run in Waco, they're conditioned to run on a Friday night like we are on a Saturday night, where you tell family, don't schedule stuff on this night because I'm going to be at a racetrack. Don't do this. Don't nominate me. Don't do that. I'm at a racetrack. Is it the same thing when you run on Friday nights that you say, hey, look, don't schedule it Friday night. I'll probably be away from the racetrack on Saturday night. Is it the same mentality Friday or Saturday that just doesn't matter, just changes the day on the calendar?
Not really, because Friday night everybody knows we're going to be at the racetrack regardless,
right.
because my whole family goes. So it really, Saturday always depends on how I do Friday. I mean, what we tear up Friday night, or if I have the parts to fix it Saturday, or if the crew like, hey, let's just go to Kennedale tomorrow night, or let's go run Cotton Bowl, or it kind of a team deal. If people want to go run, we'll kind of decide like, all right, we'll do it. We'll get up early Saturday, we'll get the car ready, and we'll go run. And financially this season, I mean, it's tough, man. I mean, you got to have people backing you and help. I don't know how people do it really financially on their own anymore without having help, because I mean, it's really expensive, and just to be competitive and to run the good stuff, to be able to run up front, you got to stay on top of your stuff and have a good shock program, and stay on top of your tires and maintenance, and have all the good parts, because if you're slacking on all that stuff, then in my opinion, I don't feel like you have a shot to go win every night, and it takes a lot, and I don't want to go to a racetrack if I don't think I have a shot to win.
Yeah. And that's, I'm sorry, Brandon, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's just, I mean, it's just tough. I mean, times have changed. I mean, I've started running stock cars in 2003. I was 16. We didn't do near the stuff we do now. I didn't do tire work. I didn't scale every week. I didn't do all this maintenance, and we didn't have shock valving and different stuff. I had a set of Pro Shocks I ran for 2 or 3 years, and I think they were my dad's hand-me-down shocks. Like, I didn't do all that technical stuff like we do now. But if you're not doing it now, to me, you're out of the game, and you're just out there kind of riding around, because you have to be on top of that department. You got to have a good shot guy and set up stuff. And I'm out there almost every night, checking everything every week and making sure. So if I run on Fridays, Saturday morning, we're unloaded, we're washing. And when I say we, I have plenty of help at the track, and we have plenty of sponsors and stuff like that to help us out. But when it comes to the work at the shop at home, I have my buddy Greg Taylor, who lives on the north side of Abilene. He comes down when he can. So he makes the trip to come help me when he can. So when I have him here, he helps a bunch on the weekends to get the stuff knocked out. So my maintenance is a little less during the week. So I'm not getting off work, working all day, and then every night till 10, 11 o'clock trying to get it all done. So if he's not here during the week, it's just me, my wife, and my little boys out there trying to get everything fixed up for Friday night. So I got my wife's been my tire girl all this year, and we got her down pretty good. She's getting really good at it. So as long as she stays on top of that, I think we're doing pretty good.
That's right, man. Yeah, I've seen some pictures there online with you guys working, and it's like, okay, that's how you do it right there. But it
Yeah.
definitely never stopped. And with that shock thing, because we do talk about shocks all the time, and it's not like you talk about pro shocks and the old days of the AFCO shocks and all these different things where you bought them and you put them on or whatever. Now it's like you get these shocks, and like you talked about getting revalved and all that. I mean, you're constantly having to take those off, and that's another one of those things to where it's not. You don't just take them off and put another set on that are super cheap. I mean, you got to get them redone, and I mean that's
Oh
cost,
yeah.
that's money, that's time, that's all that stuff.
Yes, sir. You have to have a shock guy that will work with you that you can call and talk to. And if you have an issue, work it out and make sure you're going to have that back in time, because that's a big part of this program to make it go around for different track conditions. Because I mean, you never know. You got to have different options there for different track conditions. I mean, I don't make a lot of shock changes at the track. We might change one, maybe two at the most, between dry or heavy or wet track. But I try to keep the car pretty consistent. But I got linked up with Robbie Crabtree with Dark Horse this year, and he actually went over the whole car this winter, did the body and everything, did some updates, and got on his shock program, and he's been pretty spot on with us. We've tried some different things, and I can call and talk to him, and whatever we decide on valving, he kind of changed some things, and he'll send it back, or I'll send it to him on Monday, and I'll have it back by Wednesday or Thursday. So
Nice.
you got to have that. You got to have that in your program to be able to try things, or if you damage something, you have to have that there, because like I said, that's a big part of the game, especially when these tracks start slicking off. That's, you got to stay on top of it. We scale, weekly, make sure the car's right on. I try to show up to the track every week with the car exactly the same numbers, same scale numbers, same setup. So I know I can look at the track and I know what I need to change. I know what has to be done for different track conditions. I know where my car's already at when I get there. So I know what I need to change to make it right for that type of track.
Absolutely.
So, Brandon, you mentioned one word multiple times during this interview, other than winning, right? That's a good word. But you mentioned maintenance a lot, and I think it's like, people ask me all the time, how come you don't want another race car? I'm like, it's too much damn work. It's one thing to just show up on Saturday and race it and then put it on a trailer, put it back in the garage. Talk about your maintenance program, man. Like, what all does that entail every single time you yank that thing back off the racetrack?
We probably do, or I say we. I mean, I do a lot more than most probably do, and I'm a little overkill, and I do certain things a specific way. I don't know. I just have a certain way of doing it where I just check everything every week. The car gets greased every week. Like I said, washed on Saturdays. It's back on the lift. Tire work's done. Everything gets nut and bolted, checked, trailing arms, measure everything. So it definitely gets greased and checked out. Valves are ran every week. Just everything. You have to stay on top of everything. And I'm, like I said, I'm not really a points chaser. I really want to run for wins. We are currently leading points at Waco, but to me, that's just a plus. And I want to win races. That's a big thing for me is, if you get the championship, that's awesome, because it doesn't pay nothing really.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
trophy.
not. Yeah, you don't. It's cool to say, "Hey, I won the championship," or I've never been able to run for a national title or anything like that, because you have to be fully committed and 2 nights a week, every weekend, and chase it and hit it hard. And there's no way. I mean, there's no way I could do that. I mean, we were fortunate enough last year to be able to run third, and I didn't even think I was that close in the national points, because I only ran 28 races, but how it all played out, I was right there at the end. But that's just good finishes at Waco, being consistent and not having any DNS, just staying on top of the maintenance stuff. Like I said, checking everything weekly. If I see something I don't like I said yesterday, we were checking the car out after Kennedale, and lower radiator hose had some bad spots in it I didn't like, so we ended up taking it off, and sure enough, there's a couple of cords showing, and it's just a really soft spot. So if I wouldn't have saw that, I could have ended up popping a radiator hose next Friday. So just things like that. If you're not looking
Yep.
and checking things, you could run into problems, little stupid problems that if you didn't check that, you know, you're going to have an issue later on.
Yeah, that's right. So, Brandon, sport mods, limited modifieds, all that, we've just gone through that. Kind of talk about because now it's like, I mean, there's a lot of them. I mean, it's been a great resurgence. Waco does extremely well with car counts. We're starting to see it down in the South once again, to where limiteds and sport mods are picking up. Cotton Bowl has a great count. I mean, and of course up north, they're doing really well as well. But then you got this whole thing with B mods and all this other stuff. Kind of your thoughts on that, to where it's like, okay, where do you draw the line here? Because it's like, okay, we have too many types of sport mods. Let's keep our sport mods to what they're supposed to be.
And what's weird is, like, you know, there's so many different ones, but it seems like the car counts in these classes are still pretty consistent with all. I don't know where they're all coming from. But in my opinion, I mean, I wish the USRA rules for, say, limited modifieds and Southern Sport mods, it's easier for us to go run with the USRA mods or limited mods, and then it would be for them to take their car that they would run weekly, that's not IMCA, to actually have to change things to come run with us, because we don't have the option for the quick change or the different transmissions or right front bead locks or, you know, stuff like that. But we could go run with them and we don't have to change those things. We might be at a disadvantage, but we have that option where we could go run with them and we really don't have to change anything. So really it's just a rule thing, in my opinion, to pick which best fits you. And there's so many different options for that. And the Eco mod is just like a cheaper version of the Southern Sport mod deal. And you know, the Southern Sport mods, the limit mods, it's, like I said, it's outrageous now on the pricing, on everything. So our tires now are insane. Everything's gone up, which everything in life in general has gone up. So I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. So it's either you're going to race or you're going to spend your money elsewhere, you know, regardless. So there's just, I don't know where to draw the line as far as, you know, you ask different classes on that. I don't know where that's going or why there is so many different options. It would be cool if we all just had Southern Sport mods, because we'd have a tremendous car count. Dude, and it would be insane.
Would be crazy.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, that would be that'd be off the charts right there if that were the case.
Yeah, because I really enjoy going to, you know, Cotton Bowl or, you know, Kennedale, or, you know, you can drive Southern Oklahoma. There's so many different options you can go to as far as, you know, IMCA tracks around here. So we really enjoy doing that as well when we can. But as far as like Eco mods and B mods and all that, their options are growing as well, where they can choose different places to go. So I don't know how this, you know, this mod war deal is going to play out. And, you know, I've second guessed, you know, I'm entered for it. You know, they're combining all of us together, and I've talked to my wife about it and other people, and I thought about maybe not doing it. I don't know. I'm registered for it, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to run all these different types of sport mods in the same race. I don't know how that's all going to play out, but I don't know. I don't know how that's going to go.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Yes, sir.
So, Brandon, you mentioned E-mods, right? And so, in your mind, what's the right place to start now for somebody trying to get out of the grandstands and into a racing seat? Is it? I mean, Waco's got the junior limiteds, which is somewhat limited. I'm more of an eco guy versus a junior limited, because I think you open up the door to more racers when you run an E-mod class. But where's the best way to start nowadays? I mean, some people say factory stocks, but they're $40,000 for some of those things.
There really isn't a beginner class anymore, minus the junior limiteds. I mean, used to, we had, when I started, you know, you had cruiser classes, or you had you know, all these, you know, pure stock, street stock,
bomber,
you know, you had a way to start. You know, now there's factory stock. There's guys that run factories that have been racing, you know, way before I was racing, and you drop down, and that's like a very competitive class. I mean, it's, you know, it's tough competition. You see all these big time races they put on, big paying shows, and it's very competitive. And I don't know which class I would say. I guess Eco Mod would be, a cheaper version of a way to start because of the engine package, carburetor, different things. You could do different things that we're not doing that's cheaper as far as shocks go or carburetor,
Yeah.
hydraulic camshaft, stuff like that versus with the money we're spending on engines and all that. But you go watch them at Kennedale, they're very competitive too. I mean, they're all pretty good drivers. I mean, there's really not a beginner class anymore, minus, like I said, junior limited. So you can't be a 30, 40-year-old guy wanting to get into racing and jump into a junior limited. You're just going to have to man up and, go with it. And it makes it tough for us with the IMCA stuff because, the point average game starting, you have a good point average. You're starting 4th, 5th, 6th row, weekly. And guys that, don't run all the time or guys that are learning, starting 1st and 2nd row every week, it makes it tough because you got to be cautious the first couple of laps. You don't know what's going to happen, which I'm not knocking those guys at all. They have every right to be out there as well, but it's just it makes it tough because coming up through there you might get wiped out. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what they're going to do, and it's not that they're doing anything intentionally. They're trying to race too and trying to learn. It's just it's tough when you got all this money and time in these cars and people out there trying to learn and starting on the pole. I mean, you get wiped out. It's just at the time you get pretty upset about it, and then you got to kind of take a step back and realize. And you have a few of them that that are learning that, in my opinion, they do the right thing and they start on the back for a while. They don't take that front row position. They say, hey, I'd like to go to the back. They're trying to learn, and you'll get more respect that way out of any driver that's been racing for a while by doing that, trying to learn and say, hey, I want to start on the back. I'm learning. You'll gain respect for drivers by doing that because you're going to end up tearing your own car up and our car up in the process of doing that. So,
You read my mind, dude. That's where I was going. So you answered it. You answered it right here because that definitely the hot topic and one of those to definitely continue to follow. And there's no right or wrong answer. It seems like with some of these things. But
yes, sir.
So you mentioned Waco. Get Waco wrapped up. You'll have the Fall Classic and so forth. Lastly, you mentioned some of those big ones. What else you got in the docket other than what you've mentioned at this point?
We're definitely going to go Oktoberfest again. We've won it twice. I mean, I love going to Cotton Bowl. We've only got to go there once this year. It's just, like I said, tough for me on Saturdays. I have to change rear end to go, a different gear ratio. And most of the time on Saturdays, it's just me and my wife. So it's kind of tough to get out there and change the rear end and do everything to go. But I love Oktoberfest. I love their format and how they do everything. And like I said, we won it twice, and we've had some good runs there. And I really love the atmosphere there and going, and I really enjoy that. Definitely Fall Classic, Sport Mod Nationals, maybe the Mod War deal. I want to go back to Southern Oklahoma and maybe run their big deal. It always just play it by the ear on these big races. You never know what's going on or what's coming up. But I try to hit as many as I can, and then we start getting in the process of rebuilding for the next season because it's always short, man. It goes by super fast. You're like, oh, we're done, and then like, bam, we're right back in it. And it's you don't get much of a break.
Very, very short off season for you guys and ladies. It's always time to get back to it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Brandon, always fun to watch you out there, my man. Congratulations on the season. Look forward to seeing you at Waco soon, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll be there for, I guess we got 4 more races left, and we'll definitely be out there. And like I said, I got to thank everybody that's helped me this year and continued to support us because I couldn't do it without all of them, man, because it's definitely a team effort. And without the help of everyone, I couldn't do it. So I want to thank everybody that helps us for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations, man. We'll see you soon. Keep doing it there, BG12. You got it, man.
Yes, sir. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
You got it, buddy. Take care.
All right, man. See ya.
You bet. There he goes, Brandon Guerin. I mean, that's a dude right there. When you go to Waco, you look for that number 12 car when the sport mods come out. It doesn't matter where he's going to be. That's a guy that will drive from the back to the front, and just good wheel man right there. And he's got I love that system where he's talking about with his wife and the kiddo there. They're out in the shop and they're just sitting there hammering away, working on that thing.
Well, I think he's got one of those rides, right? One of those programs where you take a friend and you take a family member, and they're like, "Who should I watch? Watch that Blue 12." Well, he's starting in the back. No, don't matter. Give it a couple laps. He'll be up front. Don't worry about it.
Yep. Absolutely. Really good stuff right there from Brandon Guerin. All right, let's go diving back in. Star-studded show that we have had here tonight. And now we are diving in once again, and we welcome in. I mean, this dude's got it. Oh, there we go. There it is right there. You know, the dude's got to, I mean, we know that this man is a top-notch race car driver when he has a name like Rodney, like I do. I mean, that just tells you how good this dude is. It's Rodney White checking in. How we doing, brother?
We're doing good. How are y'all?
Doing well, man. What you got going on back there? Looks like you're right in the middle of stuff back there.
Well, that's the new car I've been working on since this winter that my dad built. It's taken me this long to try to find time to be able to get it together and get it out there.
That's how it works sometimes. That's how that works sometimes.
So, Rodney, tell us about your season so far, man. Obviously, like they said, not a lot of time to work on the new car, but how's your current program been running so far this year?
The beginning of the season was not working out very well. It put us back in a bad spot for a little bit and ended up breaking a water pump at Rocket and going straight into the wall. And that just kind of set me to stay at Grayson for a little while as far as the pocketbook and family time goes. It's not what I had planned for this year. It's just the way it is. I guess this winter we will reset and try to branch out a little further.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Big win for you this weekend there at Grayson County. Kind of talk about that right there. That's another one of those joints right there where we're in that factory stock division. I mean, it's always going to be a contest. I mean, because there's a lot of damn good wheel folks that come out and race in that division there at Grayson County.
Yeah, this year we've been fortunate enough to have a almost full field of cars most nights. Local rodeos and things have come through, tractor pulls, and those nights we were a little bit low, but I think on average we've probably had 16 or more. It's been a good year for that, and more people are showing up, so that's always good.
Yes, sir.
So, Rodney, the popularity of the factory stocks, we've seen it kind of go up and down a little bit. You had guys that we often say move down to the factory stocks, but I like the term move over. Because there's nothing really entry level or about a factory stock anymore, because they're high end machines now, despite the name factory stock. Talk about the popularity of that class. Is it staying the same, or is this new tire thing going to be an issue with having to switch from the 45s to the ST1s, ST2s? Talk about that, the effect that may have on the class.
For me, and for a lot of the guys I talk to on a weekly basis, I think that as long as they stay with a tire that's cheap, I think that is part of the main draw. A lot, some don't like that they are allowing grooving now. I do, because I've pulled a lot of tires back out of the building that I wouldn't run no more. So it did save me for a little while, even more of not having to buy some. But I've been running the ST tires now this will probably be the third week. Our local tracks let us, and I decided to set back the 45s for places like Ardmore, Kennedale, or anywhere else that hasn't changed over yet, in case I wanted to hit them at the end of the year. Me personally, I haven't noticed a great big difference, but our tracks haven't, or Grayson anyway, hasn't been abrasive yet like you would expect in the summertime. So I don't know. The next thing is, I feel like you could take a non-USRA car and go compete with USRA cars, or you could in the beginning of the year anyways. Mm-hmm. I may make a trip or two to Rocket here towards the end of the year and find out for sure. But I think that the popularity of it is just that they are everywhere and you can go anywhere.
Isn't that that's a good and bad thing, I think, Rodney, a lot of times, to where it is, I mean, with the tire thing, and then like you're talking about with USRA, then you have, factory, you have tracks that have factory stocks that aren't sanctioned, that aren't whatever. That's that's kind of good and bad, kind of a double-edged sword with some of this stuff, because just the growth in this thing. I mean, there's so many of these cars that are everywhere, and you see full fields. It doesn't matter from way up north all the way to down south to Corpus Christi. There's just a lot of damn factory stocks right now.
Yeah, there is. And I mean, in my area anyways, I believe that most all of the tracks have accepted some part of the USRA rule. So I believe over the winter that as long as a lot of things try to stay the same, that the other people will do the same thing. Because right now they're allowing that rule package at Grayson, Greenville, places like that are close to me. I don't know about, everywhere else. Some of them allow everything but the groove tire. Some of them don't allow the torque converter yet, but even Kennedale has went further, in my opinion, and allowed a brake adjuster and things like this. So I hope and I believe that they will all come closer together.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's part of it, right? Like, like Rodney was saying, my Rodney Rodriguez was saying that, you've got your USRA sanctioning, and then you've got the tracks that kind of started with the Architects rules, and then every track kind of fine tunes it based upon, some of the aspects of their racers. But I think that the crazy part about me is the factory stocks is these big high dollar purses, right? You've got a big mod race coming to Waco, but I mean, it's amazing to me that the battle at Boot Hill pays $10,000 to win. Now, granted, when you win it, your car comes back in a cardboard box because they take it apart all the way. But what came first, the high dollar purses or the factory stocks having that many cars? Like, which one came first, in your opinion, to get all these factory stocks built to have all these great big purses? Which one came first?
To be honest with you, I'm not sure. Where I was working at the time, we were building cars, and in 2018, we built the first 4 or 5 that we had built. And until then, I'm going to be honest that I didn't even really know how big it was or wasn't and what the class was all about. 2018 on this way, in the beginning anyways, I just think that it was definitely a lot cheaper to build one. And at one point in time, I mean, I remember from 2018 on, sometime in there, it was like $3,500 for a frame and cage that's not powder coated. That's not the case no more. But at a certain point, all those were already out there, and as long as they have survived this long, people are still running them.
Yeah, isn't that the really hard part? I think that with factory stocks, it doesn't matter whether it's sanctioned or not. Is the class is at that point now? I mean, the modifieds have been there, the sport mods have been there, limited modifieds or whatever you want to call them. They're at a point right now to where folks want people. They want those changes made, and I think that's where it's really tough for the track or whoever to dictate what happens, because if you start making bad moves right now, this is where you're going to kind of blow this whole shit up, and then you're into one of those things of revolving doors of classes again. And man, this one is just strong enough right now where I don't want this thing to go away with all the cars that we see.
Yeah, see, I mean, I sit back every winter and, phone calls, texts, what's happening, what's going on. I don't really stay in the loop until I see it in black and white. But I do believe that there are changes that have to be made, and there's some that they make that didn't make any sense. Like, this winter going to a 10-inch torque converter. This winter I was looking for some 11. I couldn't find not one. So that change, in my opinion, had to be made. The intakes and different things, did it have to be? No. Did it make it easier for everybody? Yes. So, I think some things have to. And, the alternative to the 11-inch torque converter is a more expensive 10-inch torque converter. But I don't see where we were going to go if nobody's got any.
That's right.
I mean, there's other things that are like that. I know everybody wants to get rid of the manifolds. You get rid of the manifolds, there's a whole door full of headers. And that's more money. I mean, if they did that, I would just hope they would mandate one, but then everybody can't get them.
Yeah.
So, they're not going to be able to manufacture them fast enough. So I don't know. There again, it's some of the things that I think some moves have to be made. The tire change had to be made, and there's some things that should be left alone.
It's always something. Racers always want, they're their own worst enemies sometimes, right? When they want this, well, this will make us go faster, but this will make it, it's literally making you go faster, making it more common sense, right? That's not always, so I guess it's the exhaust in a race car that makes race car drivers and us kind of sit there and think about. I only want to look out for me and what's best for me versus what's best for the whole class. So I think that's just racing in general now. In terms of the in terms of the factory stock class, the allure that we found out so far is what you're talking about is with the tires, the cheap tires and stuff like that. So let's say factory stock versus an I stock or a USRA stock car, whatever the case may be, depending on where you're running. Is there a major advantage to still running the factory stocks? Does it always come down to the main, paper with dead presidents on it, depending on which class is better, in your opinion?
Well, for me here, I mean, I've got a guy who has a stock car, and we decided not to bring it out this year because of how far we'd have to travel. Like I say, my plans in the beginning of the year was totally different than where they ended up, and I was going to be running it every night. But whenever you look at, let's just say going to Rocket with a stock car, the tires for one tire, I can almost buy a set for a factory stock, and this guy also has a factory stock. So, the cost for me of looking at it, and I'd have to go to Kennedale, Ardmore, or Rocket, and that's not always going to be feasible in this area for me with kid sports and different things like that. We build our own motors. We pretty much do everything here ourselves. So I couldn't even begin to tell you the cost of engines and different things, but $1,000 Power Glide compared to a $2,500 Bren, and the drive shaft comes out and toasts it in one night. I mean, I look at those things of what the possibilities are, not necessarily that it's going to happen, but the stock cars, in my opinion, that's where I started when I was 16 years old, and they are nothing the same that they were back then.
Yeah, that's for sure. So Rodney, I mean, talking about that right there, I mean, you've raced all these divisions. I mean, you're one of the aces right here. Kind of your thoughts. I mean, we talk on this show a lot about modifieds. We've got stuff down here in South Texas where we're at. We've got a modified series that's kind of come to life and kind of rejuvenating all that. Obviously, with Tom's and all the different ones. Sport mods, limited modifieds, all that. Kind of your thoughts on those open wheel classes, because that's where we go back to. We were just talking to Brandon Guerin about where there's a lot of damn sport mods. Kind of your thoughts on all that, man, because that one seems to be kind of going off the rails a little bit too, in my opinion.
Yeah, the modified deal, to be honest with you, I don't keep up with what all types there are anymore. I drove a guy's Josh Lander's Tom's car a couple of weeks ago to Tom's race at Grayson, and I couldn't begin to tell you the different sets of rules just for the Toms. I have been tossing around the idea if my 11-year-old decides that he would rather be a rider than a driver, I was going to try to get it modified. So I've asked around to a bunch of people, where is it at right now? Like who would you go to for a car? And everybody points to outlaw car more so than an IMCA car.
Yeah.
But, their area is different than my area. My area, 10 minutes down the road, I can go race. I believe it's $700 to win, or I could carry on in a touring series, which like I said before, is not always possible with the age that my kids are now. So in my opinion, there's too many to keep up with. And the eco mod deal, I've watched so many people. I mean, 2 years ago, I was running a sport mod every night, and it got to where even a couple nights this year at my home track, there's 10 cars. Most everybody has jumped down because they feel like they have a better chance of winning, when in reality, in my sport mod, the first year I had it anyways, I mean, it was basically an eco mod motor because I couldn't afford Manly crank, and I couldn't afford the best of the best at the time.
Yeah.
And it would compete fine at Grayson, but Grayson is its own animal that way, where if it goes bone dry for all the features, the factory stock could have as fast as a lap time as a modified. So, you can't really compare that place to everywhere else, but there's too many of them. And my opinion of the eco mod class is they've allowed too much there. If they slowed them down some, be it tires, their motor is pretty much basically the same as what you could run in a sport mod. I mean, there's really no difference no more. So I tell people all the time, they're getting wiped out in eco mod, go to sport mod. You could race for more money and hopefully not get tore up as much, but
and less cars.
and most nights there is less cars.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Rodney, where is the state of dirt track racing as a whole? Everything has gone up. We all know that the economy's done what it is. But overall, the health of dirt track racing, is it survival of the fittest now, or are people just trying to find ways to get to the racetrack and getting there? I mean, from a racer's perspective, we've seen fans kind of fluctuate all over the state. People end up having, there's more stuff to do now than ever. You can sit at home, stream it. You can sit at home, watch Netflix, go to a movie, have a 75-inch TV, all that. So the fan side has been there kind of up and down. Where's the racing side of it at right now with dirt track racing as a whole? Specifically, in your area or even Texas as a whole, if you got, a bigger opinion on that.
Well, here at the shop, I do people's bodies and things, and I've expected it to fall off and not do as many anymore, especially whenever they don't look that bad. I've been very surprised about how much me or even my dad, he builds motors and things, how much that has kept going. To be honest with you, I don't know where the money or support comes from. I do know that a lot of them, I hear them talk about them having sponsors and things. Yeah. Me personally, this new car sitting here on the lift, I've built it 100% out of what I make in the shop. It does not affect my day job's paycheck or family money, if you will.
Yeah.
It is twice as expensive as a friend of mine built a sport mod, I guess it'd be 3 years ago now. And I did that the same way. And at that time it was cheaper to put that sport mod together than it has been to do this car. There's not anything anybody can do at this point. I don't believe it's I think it's different in every area though too. I mean, where I race at Grayson County Speedway, I don't believe they're ever going to be pressured to move out and move on.
Yeah. Like
some of the others. The people that are in this area, they have long standing, at that track. I mean, I grew up there and we went away to Royce City and Greenville and Paris for a while and we came back, but I didn't come back to watch. I came back to race. So yeah. I think that is area specific as to how healthy and how much it's going to be able to keep up.
Yeah, that's a great point because that really is area specific. Because north and south and central and all that, I mean, it really is a lot. I mean, there's a lot of different stuff in there. So again, just to kind of recap for you, is it going to be Grayson to finish this thing out? Are you going to chase some of those big races? The car back on the lift back there. What's the rest of 2024 for Rodney White?
Well, this car here after this show, I should be getting it busted off and make sure everything is buttoned down. And my main priority was getting this car ready before the winter. I have had people ask if it was for sale, or the old one, it may be for sale as well. And towards the end of this year, after this car is done, I'm going to see what everything looks like, and I am going to try to go, branch out and go some places. Yeah. After this is complete. But as I said, this was the main priority. And, kids going back to school in about a week, just have to see what happens.
Yeah, that's it. Rodney, thanks for the time, my man. I know you're super busy. Man, this has been a pleasure talking racing with you, man. Good luck the rest of the way. We'll do it again soon. Let's check in after the season wraps up.
All right, I appreciate it.
All right, man. Take care.
Y'all too.
You bet. Here he goes right there. Businessman. That's a bad son of a bitch right there. And I mean that in the best way. That is a man right there. Man, that you can tell right there the focus. I love you can tell that Rodney White has been at this for a long time. Where a couple of the questions that we started asking, like about the financial stuff and so forth, you could kind of see him shaking his head before we even finished the question, just about what the sport has kind of done or where it's kind of gone.
Every hobby is expensive, but I feel like the racing hobby is the most expensive hobby of them all.
Yeah. No, that's a great wheel, man, right there. Lots of accomplishments right there. Kind of looking at, and this is my race pass. And again, this isn't totally accurate, but just looking at him, 2024, 20 features, 11 wins, 15 top fives, 17 top tens. Pretty damn spectacular right there.
Yeah, top 10, 17 out of 20 top 10s. That's pretty good. That's not a lot of DNFs right there. That's when you kind of go back to the Guerin thing of nut and bolting and making sure everything's top notch.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing he was talking about right there, as I was kind of looking, kind of getting ready for him to be on the show, with Grayson County. I mean, Grayson County is another one of those kind of like the Cotton Bowl thing, where it's like, man, they've got this core of drivers that are going to show up, and man, they do a really good job each and every time. And like he was talking about, I mean, averaging 16 to 17 factory stocks. I mean, that's really good. That is a damn good weekly show right there.
Yeah, I mean that really is. I mean, it doesn't take a full field of 30 factory stocks having to run a B main to make a good factory stock race. You know,
Mhm.
they're so competitive. And like you said, there are a few of those older style $3,500 cars that are still hanging with some of these $35,000 cars. So I mean,
Mhm.
it's not a factory stock's not necessarily a run what you brung kind of class, but I mean there are some old school cars out there competing with these high dollar new cars because I mean it is. I mean, it's cheaper to build almost for if you started from scratch, it's almost cheaper to build a sport mod than it is a factory stock. Because
Yeah.
factory stocks still have those 5, 10, 15, $20,000 to win races. Where there's a couple of races, I think Rocket ends up having a $10,000 to win modified show. That's
Mhm.
huge money for an IMC modifier or a big mod now. So it's like, the factory stocks are, the economies of scale where the bigger shows, paying the biggest purse are the cars that are costing the most amount of money right now.
And I think it was pretty powerful right there where he was talking about kind of piggybacking off of what Guerin was talking about to where with the B mods and all of that question. And again, that comes up when we talk to these guys because it is I mean it's something that is very relevant right now as to what is too much and how many are too many and all this stuff right there. But like he talked about, it's like when the folks are talking about getting run over in the B mods and all this different thing. I mean, when he said, well, go run sport mod. I mean, just go be the lesser. Go be the lesser. I mean, the lesser car count and so forth. And I think that was a really good way to kind of button up the conversation that we had with both of those guys on just what the state of all of that is right now. And there really are. It's just like we talk about on the pavement side. I mean, when it comes to and that's why I think on the pavement side, because when you have supers and pros and all that, and then you have like the cars tour with a late model stock or something like that, the popularity, the abundance of late model stocks, it's its own thing. There's not anything else like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I think that really makes sense, kind of to correlate it there to the sport mod thing and on dirt.
I think so. I mean, when they were there for a while, it was like everybody was going to move over, not necessarily move down. I guess I've been working with certain promoters a little too long to call it less expensive or
Yeah.
more entry level, right? But a lot of people moved over to the pro late models when they first started because that was the end thing. That was the end races. Now you're getting the super racers and pro late model racers moving over to the late model stocks because that's got the most hype, the highest purse, the
Yeah.
biggest races right now. So now you're seeing that. I still think that the Cars Tour is almost. I've asked a couple of guys that race in it, and they say that's not the case. I still think some of the stuff we've been seeing with the Cars Tour is because the Cars Tour is getting too big. You got two
Um,
guys. You got guys trying to do, not so smart things to win these races, and it kind of goes into what we talked about at the beginning of the show. I guess that's just how we race now.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of that is when it comes to that is that when you have drivers that move over to a different class. I like what you said right there. Kind of move over. They bring the tendencies of the class that they left. You know what I mean? It's like you get a super or a pro guy that they've been out there and they race a certain way. When you go to that next class, and it happens on the weekly thing as well, to where those people move over, they're going to race that way, and it kind of sets a trend to where that's what you have to do, if you're going to
Mhm.
compete. And that sucks. I mean, that really sucks in my opinion, because you shouldn't look, man, I don't have a problem with a bump and run. I don't have a problem with leaning on each other and all of that. But this whole thing, like we were talking about, it's just way too predictable. And on pavement with these super races that we watch. I mean, like last year at the Derby with Steven and with Bubba. I mean, I thought it would happen later in the race. I guess it was 11 to go, but you knew it was going to happen at some point. You knew that was going to go down. You're just kind of waiting for that. And that's what sucks, is that you know what's going to happen. And that kind of was the cool part about that Cars Tour race a couple weeks back, to where, and now they go to Ace, to where it's like, they raced it out, not the way that I wanted them to race it out, but that's going to happen. I mean, that's unfortunately going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, and you saw some ruffled feathers at the end of that car race in Wilkesboro. The problem is like that's the way that we race now, but yet the guys still get their feathers ruffled if they get raced that way. But yet at the same time, the next week you'll see that guy race that exact same way with somebody else, and his feathers doesn't get ruffled because it went in his favor. It's only when it goes against you is when you get really pissed off about the way people race, even though you race the exact same way.
Yeah. That's just kind of the way that everybody races right now, and it it sucks, but it's a different time. It's a different time. We've talked about it a couple of I think we mentioned it a couple of different times. Coming up Saturday, you've got Cotton Bowl Speedway back on the track. It's night number 3 of the Summer Showdown Series, and that's going to be a big event. That's going to be a big event with all that extra money that's going to be going out the door, and you've got some extra stuff happening. How about we give you a preview of this weekend at CBS?
Bowl Speedway this Saturday night, August the 10th in Page, Texas. It's the 3rd and final night of the Advanced Auto Parts Summer Showdown Series. 5 big classes of cars racing for lots of extra cash. Also, the return of the Dwarf Car Racing Series of Texas. Gates open at 5 o'clock. Racing starts at 7. Come on out early. Visit with the drivers in the pit area. Take pictures of their cars. We've got souvenirs. We've got food. We've got great racing action and a family-friendly atmosphere. Come on out to Page, Texas, Cotton Bowl Speedway, Saturday night, August the 10th. It's the Summer Showdown Series, night number 3.
Shirts and OnDemandShirts.com. Custom apparel and promo products for every occasion. Birthday parties, reunions, company apparel, school events, fundraisers, and more. Much more than T-shirts. It is On Demand Shirts. Check them out for your hoodies, shirts, koozies, and so many different products. On Demand Shirts and OnDemandShirts.com. A leading innovator in apparel throughout the racing industry and in the state of Texas. On Demand Shirts, more than shirts. On Demand Shirts. Wednesday night, August 7th, for the Tecton 250 Battle at Berlin. Come see the best super late models in the country as they go for $40,000 to win in one of the biggest grassroots events of the year. It's the Tecton 250 Battle at Berlin, paying $40,000 to win Wednesday night, August 7th at Berlin Raceway. For more information, go to uararacing.com or catch it all on racingamerica.tv.
That's right. Middle of the week stuff happening right there at Berlin. Jeff Striegel and those folks right there. I think that's going to be another one right there. It looks like, $40,000 to win on a Wednesday night. That kind of talking there about I-37. That's a pretty massive thing right there that Ricky and his bunch are going to put together. I'm looking forward to that way. Hopefully Florida, all of our folks along the Gulf Coast, everybody doing okay there. That one looks kind of rough that came in. But that Wednesday night race, man, that's going to be a hell of a lot of fun.
That pays a whole lot more money than the Battle at Berlin, too. The Money in the Bank, Money in the Bank race, that was a hell of a late model race. So I can only imagine that this upcoming Battle at Berlin is going to be even better, bigger and better for the show, for the super late models. So I'm looking forward to that one. That one's gonna be a good one to watch. Prop yourself up in the Lazy Boy and get yourself a cold beer and hang on for that one. Strap in and hang on.
Yep, no doubt about it. South Texas Race Ranch also going on Saturday night. You'll have the Texas Dirt Truck Series will be there once again, and those guys always thrill, guys and ladies always thrill out there at the race ranch. So that's going to be a good one. Also with that CBS, it's not said there in the spot there that Milton did, but it's back to school night, and I think that's a really cool thing about this time of the year, Bobby, is where you get all the tracks when they're doing this, not only here in Texas, but just kind of around the country, where this is where you're doing backpack drives, school supplies, all these different things. And, if you can, and you go to one of these races, drop some stuff off. Because for some folks, when it's time for back to school, it's kind of rough, man. And I love, and again, that's where we can talk about all the bad things about the sport, but that's again where racing does really, really good things.
I think so. I think that we've been part of the school drives before and helping out as we can. It's kind of like that's the time when you get to see, the racing community come together, right? We can have different opinions and all of that, like normal.
Sure.
But when it comes time just to racers to band together and Easter egg hunts, you see lots of people put money into that and to get the Easter eggs, and you see a lot of people with the back to school stuff, and the families show up. It's usually a fairly friendly, family friendly event on back to school night, just because of the fact that it's back to school night and the kids want to come in and get their brand new whatever Buzz Lightyear backpacks or Frozen backpacks, whatever the hell's in style now.
Is that still a thing?
I don't know if you'll see a lot of Deadpool backpacks, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Hannah Montana. My girls were Hannah Montana and all that stuff. That tells you how far back I go. Also, we do want to talk about our friends, Bobby. I mean, we can't have a program talking about sport mods and talking about all the cool, fast race cars and progressions that these cars have made without talking about our friends at GRC. I'll tell you what, Justin Long in that group, some of the best race cars you're going to find.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you might want to check in with him. I don't know if they may have already been off the market, but he's got a couple of house cars for sale now. The 42, and then I think it was the 9 that was for sale. So those are the 2 house cars that he's had for sale. If they're still there, I know there was 3 of them. So you might especially check the Generation Race Cars page for sure to find out if those cars are still available. All the cars he builds are built to the same standard as those house cars, but man, for whatever reason, those house cars, they are wicked fast. But if you need help with your rebuilding with the car you got, or want a brand new one from the ground up, contact Justin over at Generation Race Cars and they'll get you hooked up for sure.
Absolutely. He will definitely do that, and you will have a winner if those guys work on it. So kind of in that conversation there with Rodney White, here's pulled it up earlier just kind of by mistake, but here we are kind of pushed out a little further back now, August the 15th through the 17th, the King of the Hill. This is going to be well north of 100 race cars that are going to be showing up right here. And I think that if this race wasn't big enough in and of itself before, I think the fact now that the race is pushed out, I mean, depending on scheduling and so forth, I know that various racetracks are going to be letting their factory stocks off, on that weekend if they're racing. I think you push this thing out further and it's only going to be bigger, man. $10,000 to win that's going to be a can't miss right there, Boot Hill.
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple of things that surprise you with this. And number one is that the fact that it's going to get as many cars. Like we talked about, we talk to the winner of the King of the Hill almost every year, and they all say the same thing. They just won $10,000. It's going to cost $10,000 to put that car back together because they bring it back in a cardboard box. Mm-hmm. They strip those cars completely down. The other thing that has me surprised this year is that it's actually sanctioned by USRA because they're running USRA factory stocks. So that's different. I thought before they didn't have an actual sanctioning tied to it. It just said factory stock. So there's small differences between the factory stocks we know down south versus the USRA factory stocks up north. So that can, I don't know how much that's going to change the difference, but you got the factory stocks, you got the limited modifieds, B mods, tuners, and sportsters. So Boot Hill's going to have a hell of a show coming up. I mean, that's get ready. That show runs a little long just because you have so many B mains on that deal. So get ready to kind of hunker down if you're watching that one on the streamer on Race On, or watching that one in person. That show takes it's a hell of a show, but it takes a little bit of time to get that show in.
And as it should, I mean, because just of the count that you're going to have right there. And the funny thing about that is that we have watched, kind of saying right there that we know that the tracks are going to not run the factories on that weekend because to allow them, if they want to attempt to go do that. We see racetracks, or we've seen racetracks in the past, and I'm sure that there will be some this year that don't. I mean, that run factory stocks. And kind of to what we were talking about right there with Rodney White, you're still going to have 20, 24 at a given racetrack because that's just how popular these cars are. I mean, they're really cool to watch. They're fast, but this right here, what you're looking at right here, if you're checking in on Racing America and trying to figure out what a factory stock is, we'll do a 101 at some point to really break down what that is, maybe pull up some rules or something to kind of let you know what a factory stock is if you're not familiar with that, if you're up north. This is why you have guys that move out of modifieds, that move out of limited and sport mods to do these kind of things right there. This is the kind of money that's available. But I always think it, like what you just mentioned, Bobby, it's like the Derby. Before the Derby actually started paying more money like it does now, to where you would go for $10,000 to win. And it's like, yeah, you won the race, you have the prestige, but shit, you won 10,000, but you spent 150,000 just winning the damn thing.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Racers don't care. They those checks cash, and that goes right back into the racing program. But that trophy will sit on that shelf and gain more notoriety and more schedule and more story. Than every year, that story gets bigger and better about how you won them trophies.
That's right. Before we dive out of here, I actually found a picture. It's been a couple of weeks that I found this, Bobby, and I wanted to share this with our friends. I mean, both here and, in other places. This right here, I think this was probably 1976. This was a picture. Let's see if I can pull this thing up. Oh, I got to get us off of here. I hope we can still talk. Let's try that. Ah, dang it. Wrong one. Hold on. Got a lot of things to work with right here. Now it's just you. Oh, man. Right there, maybe. Oh, man. I can't do it. Hold on. I'm going to try to move it to a different spot. Hold on. Stand by. Oh, that didn't work, did it? Yeah, I had it.
No.
Okay. Dang it. I'll have
Might
to find
have
that.
a fresh car though, wasn't it?
Yeah. That was when they were building the racetrack. It was Jimmy Finger and those folks that actually went out there, and that was one of the first cars that they took out there. We'll post this. That was actually Highway 16 Raceway. That was San Antonio Speedway that we talk about all the time. That was as it was being built back in those days. We'll get that posted. I had it as not an overlay, but as like a background. So anyway, I'll get that posted up. But anyway, really nostalgic photograph right there of the old San Antonio track.
Especially with that San Antonio race reunion coming up on October 5th. That'll be a good one to have.
Yeah, and speaking of that, Jennifer, that is orchestrating all of that, is kind of the backbone. Well, really the only bone in that. She's doing everything, it seems like. Congratulations, you had a wedding at I-37 this past weekend, so it looks like you had a little bit of everything going on. I-37 definitely the place to be this past weekend, it seems like.
Yeah, definitely. All kind of different activities there. There was a wedding, there was some crashing, there was some racing, there was some hurt feelings and some good feelings all the way around.
That's right. A lot of love in the air right there. Mark Barnes checking in. This is back to the King of the Hill right there. If you're not there Thursday, you can't find a place to sit Saturday because everybody, they got the spots marked, man. That's how big that race is. That's how big that race is. I can't make it. I really wanted to make that one, but just not going to be possible this time around yet again.
It's always something. Those races up north are hard to get to. They're far away from us down south.
They are, and the whole thing is, I mean, it's races like that to where, like they're saying right there, I want to go. I mean, I want to take in the whole thing. I mean, I don't just want to go Saturday. Well, obviously, on that one you don't because you won't find a place to sit. But I want to take in the full thing, and it gets kind of hard to get over there and then have the time off and so forth and so on. So, yeah, but I know that's going to be a big one, and we will definitely lobby like hell to have the winner on here once again on that Monday following that. I think we've done that for several years, so hopefully that works out again.
Yeah, hopefully we can get a beeline into the powers that be over there to remind them that come Monday night they need to be on here talking about that hell of a finish there that they have at the King of the Hill.
That's right. Jump on the show right here. Okay, Bobby, NASCAR's back. Been kind of weird on Sunday. I mean, I've enjoyed I always enjoy the Olympics, but there's been plenty of short track racing to watch. But as it's kind of worked out with some of the stuff up north, I mean, those races got rained out on Sunday. So it's like, okay, well, whatever. NFL cranking up, but time to go NASCAR racing once again. Let's go to Richmond. Thoughts on that? Is there somebody or some team that you think that's going to come out of the box right here that maybe's been kind of been put to rest, that's going to make a charge right here to finish the season off?
I don't know. The door's wide open because you got the option tire coming back this time, and supposedly they did a lot more R&D with these option tires than they did with the option tires for the All-Star race. Because in my opinion, the All-Star race experiment with the option tires was a failure. because all the guys stayed on the option tire the whole time, the softer tire, and they lasted more than what they thought they were going to. So I hope we see a little bit more of a fall off. I really was surprised that they announced that during a short track race, a points race. So that's kind of surprising that they ended up doing it. I didn't think they'd actually do it for a points paying race, but it's, I mean, everybody's going to be on the same playing field. You got the opportunity to choose which tires you want. So those would be the ones that, to see it. I think that the Penske cars may have a leg up because of how well the success went with the test and then running the option tire there at Wilkesboro. I think a dark horse could be Ty Gibbs there, because Ty Gibbs was part of that tire test there at Wilkesboro too. So depending on how the option tire shakes out, those two could be pretty dangerous come Sunday.
Yeah, Ty Gibbs has been knocking on that door for a while. He's kind of slid back a little bit, but still kind of hoping Michael McDowell can pull one of these things out and get himself in the firmly into the playoffs here as he gets ready to walk away from the 34 car. So it's going to be fun to watch this thing shake itself out. I think even the people that don't watch NASCAR that really do, I think that even a lot of those people would admit, yeah, I'm kind of ready to have that back so I can piss and complain about stuff on Sunday, because it's been kind of quiet on Sunday without that going on.
Yeah, been kind of quiet on social medias on Sunday. So Saturday morning has been a little fired up after a couple of race weekends the last couple of weeks, but that's a late race too. That race doesn't kick off until it's late afternoon. Green flags are like 5 o'clock Eastern time, so 4 o'clock Central. So
Yep. Lots of good racing locally, all across the state of Texas, all across the, I was going to say the Gulf Coast, but I think that there may be some races that are going to be postponed or canceled. And once again, our thoughts with all the folks that have been impacted by that storm. And the bad thing about this storm, it's a slow one. The last one that we had through here, it was pretty quick. This one appears to be just kind of like those guys on the front row that people have been bitching about. They just kind of don't want to go, it's
just
like
don't want to go at all.
Yeah, storm's just kind of missing a gear right there. So it's gonna hang itself around a little bit. Final thoughts, my man. What's on tap for the week?
We'll play catch up after being gone to a conference again all week. So that's the main thing. Depending on different issues of mowing yards and stuff like that, I may make it back out to Cotton Bowl for the third and final night of the Summer Showdown series. That's a possibility. I know you'll be down at the Race Ranch having a good time down there in Corpus. So I don't know, just playing a little catch up from being gone, and then still watching the videos that Karen posted on the HMP Oval Facebook page of some of the different post-race press conferences in there. If you hadn't seen it, check out the one with Sean Paul Lehman. We got 8 minutes with that guy, and that was didn't even have to try to get 8 minutes out of SPL over there, the Crazy Horse. So that was kind of fun. So yeah, lots of good stuff happening this week. Just going to play a little catch up and get ready to be seen at the racetrack near you.
That's it. Glad to see that dude win. Fun to see Heath Stewart out there racing once again. Didn't get to talk to him, but I wonder how long before. I bet we'll see him sooner than later. Once again, back on the pavement right there. Really, really good stuff. Thank you all for being a part of the program. Thank you, Ryan Doyon. Thank you, Brandon Guerin. Thank you, Rodney White. We had them lined up and we had them all watching tonight, man. Really, really good stuff. Didn't get a lot of response on the questions that we had, which I figured we wouldn't. But just wanted to throw that out there because this is a very open forum. I think maybe where we messed up was bashing and all that. We said we weren't going to tolerate that. So I'm sure that'll be afterwards. I'm sure
it'll come up. We may have to delete a few comments after the show's over.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what's going to happen. Guys, we'll do it again next Monday, right here, same time, same place, all the different places that you're checking this out. You can always find every audio replay, every audio podcast at RevvedUpSportsShow.com. It's right there. iTunes, Google Play, Spreaker. Everywhere. It's everywhere. The videos on YouTube, the videos on the Race On page, on the Racing America page at RevvedUpSportsShow.com. All of that. For Bobby, I'm Rodney. We are in Texas. We will catch you guys next Monday. We'll do it again. It's #Real Race Talk. As Bobby says, what show is this, Bobby? What show is this?
This is the show that started it all.
And still going strong.
That's right.
We'll see you guys next Monday. #Real Race Talk. Y'all have a great week, and we'll do it again next Monday.